Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Raw Prospect Podcast. We are live on a Tuesday night, the week before the start of the NFL playoffs. This episode will be our NFC wildcard predictions. We're going to go through each team, each matchup, go through our predictions, and make a best bet between all three games in the NFC side of the bracket. But before we do all that, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a like on this video. Follow us on our social media platforms Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. All of those were available on all audio platforms and podcast formats as well. And share it with your friends as well. Any sport fans um, go ahead and share it with them as well. But now introducing my co-host from Houston, Texas, the Stat King himself, Mr. McElwain. How you doing, man?
This is one of my favorite times of the year, if not my favorite time of the year. It is the NFL playoffs. It's the week of the NFL wild card weekend. Here in about 72, 96 hours, we'll be kicking off NFL wild card weekend. I kind of like the way that they set up this year's slate of games, as they have the AFC games going consecutively first, and then the NFC will finish out the weekend. So it goes AFC, 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 NFC, NFC, NFC. For today's episode, I'd like to just go in chronological order. So we will start with your game, your Dallas Cowboys. They won the NFC East. They are hosting, and they may host two playoff games if they win this one. They will host the Green Bay Packers, who do get in at 9-8 in the NFC as a 7 seed, with the I guess surgence of Jordan Love. I'm not sure you could call it a resurgence, but the surge of one Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. We've seen this matchup before in the playoffs. Mike McCarthy going up against his old former team. But these are two different teams than they were back when they last met in the playoffs. This game will be taking place Sunday, 3:30 p.m. on Fox. It's the middle game on Sunday, right after Steelers-Bills, right before Rams and Lions. It's that prime window, mid-afternoon Sunday playoff game on Fox. Nationally televised. Of course, the Cowboys are going to get that slot. So it's your team, man. I'll let you start us off.
Yeah, I think from a matchup standpoint, I think Green Bay was one that I had on my list of teams that I, for a first round matchup, if we did win the division, would not want to play, just based on the fact that they weren't supposed to be there. And I say that in air quotes just because, they're playing with house money. Obviously, they earned their way in, and I'm not saying they weren't supposed to be here in terms of they're not good enough to be here. That's not the case at all. In fact, I think with how they're playing right now and the Chicago Bears team that they just beat, and the level of football that they've been playing for a month plus here, not just from quarterback Jordan Love, but overall, has been enough to where you raise your eyebrow a little bit as a Cowboys fan. 100%. This is not a game you take lightly. 100%. You can't even dream of taking this game lightly. Here's what I will say. I think this game is going to come down to, can the Cowboys stop the Packers' run game? Because if the Packers turn this into a rock fight, 20-23 type of game, then things can get dicey there. The Cowboys, with how their offense is and how they match up against Joe Barry, they want this to be a track meet, and they're gonna try to score quickly, and that's gonna put pressure on the defense to where every time Green Bay gets the ball, they're going to have to go score. But that's where the time of possession aspect comes into play. If they're able to run the football and control the clock, then you can keep that Cowboys offense off the field and kind of take that part of it out of effect. On top of that, I mentioned they're playing with house money. I think I could see them, going aggressive with everything. Maybe a fake punt, maybe, just trick plays, all of it. They're going to pull out all the stops. They've truly got nothing to lose, and that's the scary part. I do think Cowboys have the edge in pretty much every facet in terms of overall roster and experience. I will be taking the Cowboys, but I'm taking Green Bay to cover the spread, cover the 7.5 points.
It's crazy because back just over a month and a half ago, on November 13th, the Green Bay Packers were 3-6. They had the sixth worst record in the NFL at the time. And they come in to these playoffs at 9-8 for really one reason and one reason only. They got much better quarterback play over. There were other reasons too, but a big part of it was Jordan Love. And that's a big storyline going into this game, in my opinion. The Packers quarterback, 18 touchdowns to just one interception over the final 8 weeks. He's just the sixth quarterback in NFL history to throw 18 or more touchdowns with one pick or less in the final 8 weeks of an NFL season. He's been on fire. He's got a young, good stable of weapons to throw the ball to. We knew about Romeo Doubs. We know about Christian Watson. But this stable of rookies have really stepped up in the second half of the season. Jaden Reed is a guy to keep an eye out for. Dontavian Wicks has been really good as of late, the fifth-round rookie. And then their two tight ends, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, have those individual guys as rookies have all stepped up in individual games and had played big parts in this Packers run over the course of the second half of the season. I do agree with you. I think you definitely don't want this Packers run game to get going, because not only does that allow the Packers to dictate the tempo of the game and keep the Cowboys offense off the field, but it tires out that defense. And if they're able to, as you mentioned, turn this into a rock fight, turn it into a physical upfront kind of game, and they're able to lean on the Cowboys defensive line, it's going to be harder for the Cowboys to get home on those third downs to get a pass rush on Jordan Love. And with the way that Jordan Love is playing right now, that's really what you want to do. You just want to impose your will, win up front, pin your ears back, and go get them. Force them into mistakes as a young quarterback. Priority number one on defense will be stopping that run game or limiting that run game with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. But the matchup I'm watching is, because I do think the Cowboys have a significant advantage, is Mike McCarthy against Joe Barry's defense. Statistically, when you look at the statistical profiles, the Cowboys should have the advantage as they finished with the league's highest scoring offense. And I'd make the argument that CeeDee Lamb, outside of maybe Tyreek Hill, was the best receiver in the NFL this year. They were second best in offense by EPA, but Barry's defense finished around league average in points surrendered, thanks to pretty much an offense that was able to control the clock and kind of keep that defense out of too many exposable situations. But when you look at the Packers defense, I think there is reason for concern in this game. The question for Joe Barry is, can his scheme, can his game plan, whatever that might be, and will his play calling hold up and also whether these players can execute in the biggest moments on third downs, get this Cowboys offense off the field, make big tackles. This is a unit that allowed the most 200-yard rushing games in the NFL this year. So they were close to melting down in Week 16 just a couple weeks ago at Carolina. The Panthers just ran out of time. I have major questions about their ability to keep this Cowboys offense, I guess, under wraps or in containment. So I will be going with the Cowboys to win. Another part of this is they've been fantastic at home all year, and they've been dominating teams at home. Their average margin of victory at home this year is like 22 points per game. It's ridiculous. I don't think they're gonna do that in this game, but I tend to think I haven't thought about a score, but I am going to go Cowboys to win and cover, but not by much. Maybe like a 10-point win, something along those lines.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I'll even say a score. I'm gonna take the Cowboys to win, but not to cover. Um, I was gonna say something else, but it completely left my mind blank. So let's just
I
move
would
on.
venture though. It won't be my best bet, but I would venture if I was a betting man to take that over on the 50.5. I think it gets over that. I just have a weird feeling.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think both offenses are too good to where it's just bound to happen. And I think Matt LaFleur is probably going to look to expose the matchups with the linebackers. I think look for Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon to get out on routes out of the backfield because that's a matchup the 49ers have exploited. That's a matchup a lot of different teams have exploited against the Cowboys. That linebacker core of Damone Clark and blanking on his name right now, but that linebacker core is exposable in coverage if you get them manned up.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's move on to the night game Sunday, the second NFC game of the weekend. I think this is the most intriguing game of the weekend, quite
Yep.
possibly. The number 6 seed Los Angeles Rams will travel to Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions, coming off a 12-win regular season. A great year for the Lions. -3. The Lions are favored. The over-under is 51.5. This game will be played Sunday at around 7 p.m. on NBC. I guess the
You can go ahead and start.
first thing we need to talk about are the storylines in this game. Obviously, we've seen Matthew Stafford and the Rams beat Jared Goff's Lions before, back 2 years ago in 2021, in what was a lopsided game. But these are two totally different teams now. And this feels like the real reunion in a big stage, prime time on NBC. Goff getting his shot at payback on McVay is a juicy storyline. But also, Stafford coming back to Detroit for a playoff game. It's big. I think for me, a big question in this game is, will this Detroit Lions defense, coordinated by Aaron Glenn, have an answer for Matthew Stafford, especially on third down? Aaron Glenn, at least from my vantage point as a defensive coordinator or as an outsider watching Lions games this year, looking at him as a defensive coordinator, something he really likes to do and he will do a lot as he has over this span of Dan Campbell's tenure, is he likes to go into his bag of tricks, especially on third down. You'll oftentimes see the Lions crowd the line of scrimmage, give them heavy blitz looks, drop into exotic zone coverages and man match coverages that are difficult to diagnose for most quarterbacks. And it's worked at some times for Detroit, but it's also burned them at some points in times. But he does like to do that. He'll give you different looks. Third downs, I mean, they can be tough against any defense. They're especially important in the playoffs. With the way that Matthew Stafford has been playing, and just he's been there, done that. He's a veteran. The weapons he has with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. I'm just curious, like, what is Detroit's game plan defensively? And will they have an answer for Matthew Stafford on those third downs? I think the start of this game is very important, especially from a Detroit defensive standpoint. If the Rams win the ball on the coin toss and they go down and score with an unexperienced team like the Lions, it could get tight very quickly in that stadium. I could very easily see that offense kind of tightening up a little bit if they have to play catch up the entire night. I don't know. I know the Lions offense, as good as it is, could definitely go toe to toe with this Rams offense, but I think it bodes well for the Lions to get out to a good start in this game and be able to dictate the terms on which this game is going to be played at. I know I've used that term a lot over the past couple of days, going back to when we were doing our college football playoff preview. But if you can run the ball, if you're Detroit, that's what you want to do. You want to give your defense as much rest as possible, long methodical drives, run the ball with Montgomery, run the ball with Jahmyr Gibbs, let this offensive line do its thing, and then make your plays in the passing game off of that. And I think one thing that's really interesting, I don't know the status, but the tight end for Detroit is hurt. The young tight end, what's
Sam
his name?
Laporta.
Sam Laporta. He is hurt. I don't know that he's going to play in this game, and that's big. So those are my initial thoughts on the game. What are yours before we make a prediction?
I hate this matchup for Detroit. I'm not gonna lie. I think as much as I love Dan Campbell and the energy he brings and kind of the, I guess, underdog nature of it all, but when it comes down to it in the playoffs and your calling card is we're gonna out physical you. It's hard to out physical teams in the playoffs. That's just the bottom line of it. That team on the other side won 10 games. It's the reality of it. And to put it simply, they also were 10-4 with Matthew Stafford in the lineup. So this is not a Rams team that people should be overlooking. Like I think people are looking at this matchup maybe at the start of the week. They're like, I think the Lions probably have that. And then you look deeper into it, and the more and more you look at it, you see Matthew Stafford, his way he's been playing. You see Michael Hoyt, the defensive lineman who has been on a tear these last 5 or 6 games alongside Aaron Donald. Like, sure, you can double team Aaron Donald, but here comes Michael Hoyt. He had, I think, 10 pressures and 3 sacks 2 games ago. I mean, this defense is a lot better than people realize. I kind of feel more confident in, the Lions, if they can, as you said, get off to a good start and kind of control the type of game it is. But I don't know if they can really do that. I think it's more so going to be a back and forth type of game, and I think it's just going to come down to the fourth quarter. Which quarterback is going to make more throws in the fourth quarter? And to me, that's Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. The one thing I will say for the Rams to watch for is this year, the Rams ranked 32nd in special teams DVOA. On the year, they missed 16 combined field goals and extra points. That's the most of any team in the league. I'm just pointing it out. According to ESPN,
It matters. I mean, it matters. It definitely does.
according to ESPN stats and info, just a couple weeks ago, in fact, against the Giants, they missed 2 extra points and allowed a 94-yard punt return in the fourth quarter. They recently made another change at kicker. They re-signed Brett Maher, who you are very familiar with.
Yes.
So they're having some issues there, and that could come into play, as it always sometimes finds its way to do over the course of an NFL playoff couple weeks. But I think I agree with you, man. Like the more I look into this, given you probably have to give Detroit the edge on special teams, given what I just mentioned, I think the Rams just match up well with the Lions. I'd give them the quarterback edge. As much as I like the way that Jared Goff has played the past couple of years, as much credit as Dan Campbell deserves for the job that he's done with this Detroit Lions football team, as much credit as the front office deserves for acquiring all this talent and drafting very well over the past couple of years and developing these players with this young team. And as much credit as they get for, getting guys like Aiden Hutchinson and drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, getting their next premier tight end in Sam Laporta, for the moves that they've made, the season that they've had, 12 wins, only the second time that Detroit has won 12 games in a year in like the past quarter century. Detroit's never won a playoff game in the wild card round. They've won a playoff game, I think, in the divisional round where they somehow got a bye. I think they've won playoff games before, but they've never won a wild card playoff game, which is an interesting stat. And before I make my pick, these are some interesting numbers for you. The Lions are surrendering 247 pass yards per game this year. We know this defense can be leaky. That's the 6th worst in the NFL. And it's definitely not a good thing when not only are you going to face Matthew Stafford, who's a Hall of Fame quarterback, not only are you going to face the brilliant offensive mind that is Sean McVay, but you're facing a Rams team, a Rams offense that's fully healthy. Yep. And when this offense has been healthy this year, when they've had Stafford, when they've had Kyren Williams in the backfield, when they've had Cooper Kupp, and when Puka Nacua have all played in 8 games total this year, Stafford threw 18 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, and the Rams averaged 29 points per game. They went 6-2.
Yeah.
I do think this will be a higher scoring kind of game, but I'm pretty confident the more and more I look into it that the Rams will win. And look, I kind of hope that Detroit wins. Yeah. It makes me look stupid. I would love to be wrong here, but I just can't ignore what the stat profiles and kind of the matchups are telling me. So I'm going to take the Rams to win on the money line, and that's going to be my best bet for the NFC.
Okay. I actually have my best bet in this game as well. I'm going to take the over in this game. That 51.5. I think this is going to be It's going to be a track meet, I think. Here's what I'll say about the Lions, though, in terms of what can they do? What can they do to flip this thing? One thing we do know about the Rams is that they can be had on the outside, and particularly with their corners. So when they get man-to-man coverage, I think it's going to be on Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond, Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course. They got to go win their matchups. I think that's going to be a big deal in this game. I think the X factor could be Jamison Williams. If they're able to get a couple big plays out of him and maybe take the top off the defense a little bit and force the Rams to be stretched vertically a little bit and have that fear, I think that could play a huge part in them ultimately winning the game. But yeah, I am going to go with the Rams, though. I think it's going to be a tight game, like all the way to the finish. And it may even come down to who has the ball last.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so we both have the Rams winning. Your best bet is the over, and my best bet is Rams just winning on the money line. And obviously that would mean they would cover because they're the underdogs. All right. Our last NFC game and the last wild card game to conclude wild card weekend will be on Monday night. This matchup has become a lot more interesting at the way these two teams have been playing over the past month, in their current states at least. Tampa Bay, who won the NFC South, 4-seed. I think I wrote that wrong. It should be Eagles at Buccaneers, but whatever. That's my fault. The Eagles are favored by 3. The over-under is 43.5. This will be Monday night on ABC or ESPN around 7:15 kickoff. Let's start with you on this matchup.
I think, the overall discourse on this matchup is people have really jumped on the Eagles suck bandwagon. And I think they're overcomplicating things a little bit. If we're really looking at things big picture here, the entire body of work is still there for the Eagles. The overall talent is still there for the Eagles. I think the last couple of weeks as well has been very rough from the Bucs' point of view in terms of their offensive production. Now, I do think the Bucs can pose problems with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the outside. I think that's the biggest edge the Bucs have. And if they're going to win this game, I think it's going to be one of those games where Baker's going to throw it 45, 50 times. And they're going to be chucking it around the yard. Because I don't expect them to run the football much at all or very well at all. And it's going to be on Baker's shoulders. And one thing we know about Baker, and I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan, but when he has to throw it 45, 50 times, it just does not bode well in terms of ball security and consistency. So with all that being said, I still think the Eagles have the edge in this game. I think if in theory the Bucs had a better run game, I would feel a little bit differently. But since the Bucs are last in the NFL in both yards per carry and rushing efficiency, I think rushing efficiency. I think that's a measure of yardage your offensive linemen are able to block downfield on those type of run plays, on power run plays, and they're last in the NFL in that. So going against this Eagles defensive front, I think being as one-dimensional as they are, I'm going to be taking the Eagles.
Yeah, you can make the argument, these teams are both kind of headed or were headed in the wrong direction towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
And it makes it harder to make a pick here. I think whichever team wins first and second down will win this game. To me, for both offenses, is about getting into manageable third downs, or not maybe getting into many third downs at all. It's not setting yourself behind the chains and uh, staying on schedule with trying to at least be being a balanced offense and not being in those third and long situations on both sides. The Eagles are 5-1 this year when they rush for 140 yards or more. They are facing, though, a Buccaneers defense that surrendered the fifth fewest rushing yards in the NFL. While the Buccaneers weren't very good at running the football, offensively, they were fairly good at stopping the run. So I think that matchup is interesting. Uh, the Eagles have a couple Hall of Famers on their offensive line, and this Bucs front has been pretty strong in that area of stopping the run, and they're going to have to do so. We know that A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith, I believe, are all dealing with their variation of some sort of bumps and bruises, minor injury. So I'm interested to see if that affects their availability in any way. But I do think, the more I think about it, um, Tampa Bay's inability to run the football in that first matchup earlier on this season just like keeps re-entering my brain, and I just don't see much of a scenario where they're able to get that run game going enough to where it really makes the play action uh, super, super effective against this Philadelphia defense. Uh, Tampa Bay, I think, will put up a good fight it's at home. I think they'll be ready to play. I think they'll put up a fight for 2.5 quarters, but I do think the Eagles will win this game. They have the personnel edge, the experience edge, and I just think they're really desperate to get kind of their mojo back.
Yeah.
It's loud in Philadelphia right now, around the league. A lot of people are talking about the Eagles and their struggles. I think they're going to come out and try to prove a point. Like, we may have struggled over the past 5 or 6 weeks, but we're more of the 10-1 football team that you saw the first 3 quarters of the season. We're more of that team than we are the team that got embarrassed by the Giants, lost to Arizona, like that sort of thing. So I think the Eagles will win this game, and I think they will probably cover.
Um, and just so, and as well, like I will be rooting for the Lions and the Eagles simply because I want the Eagles and the Niners to play each other. I want those two to clash and the Cowboys to be, on the other side of the bracket, whatever matchup that would be. But I would rather be on that side of things as a Cowboys fan. But um, I think all three NFC matchups turned out pretty good for the NFL overall. I think
Yep.
you couldn't really ask much more in terms of storylines. All three games really have intriguing matchups and just like clashing of styles and coaching schematics as really any NFL playoff matchup would. But um, it turned out really well on the NFC side of things.
I think so too. So I'm going with the Cowboys to win in cover, the 7.5, but I think it'll be more of a 10, 13 point kind of victory, more so than like any sort of blowout. Um, you took the Cowboys to win, but the Packers to cover. In the second game, we both took the Rams to win. The Rams winning on the money line's my best bet. Emmy's best bet was the over, right?
Yep.
On the over under of 51.5. And then in this third and final game, We both are picking the Eagles to get the road victory. And I'm assuming you're picking the Eagles to cover the -3.
Yeah. I'm picking the Eagles to cover. Yeah, I think it'll be like 7-ish points. Not exactly comfortable, but I think they will cover the 3-point spread.
Okay. So this is the NFC side of things. This is our NFL wildcard weekend preview for the NFC. We will be throughout the week putting out individual game videos. So if you just want to watch game by game, you can do that. But we'll also have the NFC and the AFC recorded separately. So that'll be there for you. Make sure you go check out Dithole and all the other content on the channel. Do you have any parting shots? Or
My one parting shot is that as a Cowboys fan, this is the time of year where you hold your breath and hope. And I guess that is for pretty much every fan base outside of maybe one or two each year. But oh gosh, I I really hope we can get to the NFC Championship this year. I think that's the main goal this year. Like that should be the expectation.
I agree. That'd be progress. If you big time progress. So with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. The AFC episode will be out soon, and we will see you then. Just like the Jaguars and Seattle's chances of making the playoffs, we are gone. Peace out.
You fuck around, find out.